Welcome to Season 4 of Just Wanna Quilt. I'm your host, Elizabeth Townsend Guard, and I am super psyched to be talking to all kinds of people about quilting and copyright, entrepreneurship, all kinds of things. And now our theme.
This is the moment we've been waiting for. No hesitation, oh, we're at the door. We can feel it, we're not stopping now. We were lost, but we finally found it.
So today we talked to Brandy Maslowski. She is a former firefighter person, and her branding is Quilter on Fire. She has a really interesting story, and she's on TikTok, and we've played with her in a lot of different ways, but this is the first interview with Just Wanna Quilt with her.
Good. Yeah, I've got my nice cup of tea. Oh, I've got all
perfect.
the equipment behind me. Sorry. Is this being recorded for video as well?
No, we're doing it for the audio, just as a backup.
Okay.
I mean, we
we
could use it, but we haven't in the past, so. Okay. Let's see what else I need to do.
Face. I've only ever chatted with you, I think, on
really?
Messenger.
It's so funny, right? You get to know people, but then you're like, we haven't even chatted. It's so weird.
Oh, I should grab the little book to show you that we might be talking about.
Okay.
Grab it. Here it is. This is that little book we were talking about by Jacqueline Enthoven.
Oh, right. The little book. What did you end up doing about the little book?
Oh my gosh, it's such a great part of the story. I'll tell you about it today because I'm doing this big thing on TikTok.
Okay, cool. Awesome. That's super great. All right. Well, let's start with what we start with, which is tell me your name and where you're calling from.
My name's Brandy Maslowski, and I'm calling from Summerland, British Columbia, Canada.
Nice. And what's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
Oh, my first memory, I think, is little flea market that I used to go to across the back lane. And this woman had this huge table of Cabbage Patch clothes. Remember the Cabbage Patch dolls or Cabbage Patch Kids? Mm-hmm. And I used to just mull around her table. I was just so in love with everything she did. And finally, she just invited me, please sit down and I will teach you how to sew. So she taught me to hand sew. And by the end of that market season, I had made a little shirt for my Cabbage Patch doll. And she was so delightful. When she sort of knew I was never going to see her again at the end of that season, she gave me this sort of baby bunting for my Cabbage Patch doll. Aww. And it was the sweetest thing. I lived in an area that was very, very cold in central Canada in the prairies. And so to have this bunting for your doll was a big thing there. You needed to keep your doll warm in the winter.
Totally. I love it. That's very sweet. And so tell me a little bit about your journey. Like, what role does quilting or sewing play in your life? And sort of how did you get to where you are right now?
Well, quilting really has been a healing journey for me. And it's because I was a firefighter for my career for 15 years. And easing out of that career, we decided to move across Canada. It really kind of crushed my spirit. So I used sewing to kind of escape and quilting to kind of escape. And so I gradually really got into quilting and fiber art and art quilting. Really, really enjoyed it. Kind of melted away my stress and anxiety. And over the years, I just fell so in love with it that I thought, this is my thing. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this as my business. And so I really got into teaching and speaking and now judging. And then I started up the podcast, which has been so fun. So I've been having a lot of fun with it. But yeah, I really would say that quilting has been the thing for me. If I've ever gone to counseling for the things I saw on the job as a firefighter.
Yeah.
They've told me you've pretty much saved yourself by doing this methodical thing that really has calmed your mind all these years. So
interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay, so it makes me think of a couple of things. First, we hear that over and over again, this sort of process of healing, sort of what quilting does and all of that. I remember when my grandfather died, my mom was a cross stitcher and a knitter. And she makes these, she's passed, but she made these huge masterpieces of, those like very intricate cross stitch. And after her dad passed unexpectedly, all she did for 6 months was that. Like she just and she kept saying it just turns off that part of my brain that can't cope at the moment. It sort of, so that, and so that reminds me of that. Also, When I was a PhD student, my field is the culture of war and sort of generational sort of impact of war, whether you go or not to war, sort of how does that impact? And I looked at the First World War, but I went to, my cousin was working at the VA at the time, and they were doing quilting projects as part of healing at the residential center for PTSD in Palo Alto. And it was amazing to watch, and I spent a week there learning about sort of how they used art and narrative and quilting and stories as part of that process. And that was, a couple decades ago, right? So, but it was really interesting to see sort of that sort of space using quilting, using crafting, using stories. I had seen it in my PhD work for World War I people, like that they told their stories over and over again in art and stories and writing and all that. But to see it as a healing process. So anyway, those are the things that make me think of what you're saying.
It really tends to come out in my art as well. So I've made a few art quilts that have to do with PTSD, and one quilt I'm working on right now, it's a Denise Schmidt pattern called the Proverbial Quilt. So it's letters. Her pattern is all the alphabet letters. So I'm making this quilt that says, her hands guided the fabric through the machine and her world softened. Wow. So that's the little sort of miniature poem I made up, and I'm making that into a quilt right now. So yeah, it feeds right into my artwork, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay. So the podcast. So tell me about the podcast. You're on a podcast, and tell me about your podcast. I'm hearing great things about it. I don't know if I've listened to it yet or not, but I will. I'm so excited. So tell me more about it.
Well, it's been so fun. I actually started up my podcast in 2013. I did it for 2 years back then, and it was called Canadian Quilt Talk back then. And I mostly featured Canadians, and I had my own, episodes where I talked as well about topics. But I decided to start it back up again just in December, and it's been going so great. I've been having so many incredible guests that I haven't even ever had an episode where it's just me. So it's been really fun. I've been interviewing the likes of Ricky Timms and Pokey Bolton and Lyric Kennard, and
so very cool.
Denise Schmidt coming up. So yeah, it's been great. And it's just about the story for me. It's about, how does my guest take the listener from here to there? What joy in their life can I bring to the audience, and then they can benefit from that. So that's really what it's all about.
And how often do you post? Do you have a specific schedule? I never had a schedule. I still don't have a schedule. I just kind of like dump them. But are you more disciplined?
Yeah, I do my podcast every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and it kind of comes out with a whole blast of stuff. So you get this little 3-minute video trailer on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
You get this full feature podcast, and it's whatever length it is. If it's a 30-minute or hour and a half, it's whatever the guest brings to the table. And then I also do sort of an e-blast to my newsletter or my email list with a podcast preview. So it's all about the guest and the links and the photos. And then the fourth thing is I always do a contest. So I have a sponsor, Northcott Fabrics, and sometimes the guest gives something amazing away. So yeah, we have a lot of fun there. So there's four things that come out all at once.
How do you do the contest? What are you doing to tell me a little? We've done a lot of work on contests on the legal side, so I'm curious what your thoughts are about contests.
Yeah, there's positives and negatives about the contest. So I'm adamant I allow contest entrants from all over the world. So it's only been once that I've had to send a little bit of a pricey mailing. I sent something to Israel once, but it was just a few fat quarters that ended up being like $12. But so the contest is open to everyone in the world, anyone who would listen to my podcast, obviously. And I use a platform called Buzzsprout. Or no, not Buzzsprout. Sorry. Buzzsprout is the podcast platform. King Sumo is the contest platform. So King Sumo, what it does is it allows me to create a contest and run it for a certain amount of time. And then people can enter for free I think they need to put their email in at a very minimum, but I don't get those emails. It goes into the platform. And then they can enter as many times as they like. So every day they can enter, plus I can set it up so that they can like my Facebook and Instagram, or like my guests' Facebook and Instagram, to get extra entries. So they can get up to about 10 entries a day, I think, usually.
That's great. Yeah, we used a platform called Gleam.io, Gleamio, and it did sort of the same thing. And then it had different prices. If you didn't want photographs, then it was free. And if you wanted more, it's one of these. And then it allowed you to put the legal stuff in there, and then also the choose the winner. So that helped too, that it was part of that. Yeah.
This one, King Sumo, is free. I think the only downfall is that one of my friends who is a follower let me know that she goes, I got further emails from them.
You
and
did?
I was like, what? Yeah, so she got further emails because I'm using the free platform, I think. Right. She got another email saying, you entered a contest. Would you like to create your own contest? Like, it was more advertising.
So that's what you get for the free version, is that they're capturing the email and using it. That's interesting.
I didn't realize they're going to get bothered further, So that's something I'm considering changing.
Try Gleam. We didn't have any experience with that with Gleam.io. And it allowed us to put in the legal stuff, so I think that's really interesting. So for contests, we haven't looked internationally. We might try to do that. If you send me an email, I'll have my law students look into it. But there's you're giving away such small things. There are sort of states that don't allow you to do contests for over $500. So like we couldn't, even though we're a dealer of the Grace Frame Company, we couldn't actually do that easily. We'd have to eliminate certain places. But we haven't looked into sort of, if you're going to run an international contest, what legal issues arise. Again, most of the time it doesn't really matter. But because we're a law school and because I'm a law professor, that was one of the things. But we did that really early, about 4 years ago. The other thing we really liked about Gleam.io was that we could put in our legal thing, right? Like, so you can't be whatever. There's a whole bunch of. It's really silly, but it allowed us to do that. But I'm happy to send that to you. If you send me an email, we'll take a look and see, because we are doing work on contests, and I'm curious, when you do want a global audience and you do want to have a global a reach, how do you do that? Now, did Northcott as a sponsor? Did you have to say? Do they just send you product? So we've had a lot of products sent to us over the years, and so I'm curious. Was there any legal restrictions or anything they wanted you to do, or did they just send it to you?
Well, I've been asking them if there's something I can give back to them since 2013, because they keep just sending me boxes full of fabric. So they send me about one box every 3 months of about 150 fat quarters. So and I just blow through it. And they've sent to me so much that they've actually allowed me to give some away while I'm teaching and speaking as well.
That's really great.
And I usually give away 2 or 3 fat quarters each time. For the podcast, I'll give away up to 5. And I send them letter mail as a gift, and with no value. Well, I guess I put the value's under $100, so I don't have to put a value on it. So
right.
That's really how I just do it. I think once in a while I give away something larger, like when we did Oliso irons, we gave away an iron, but the company just sent that from the store.
Yeah, we've had that too. It's interesting. Do you feel like the other thing that we were told really early, we've done like these weird like we did, we went to Quilt Festival, we did a huge giveaway. When we did them, we usually do it with events, not just sort of daily, but that was an interesting idea. But one of the things we were told was that people will be coming to do whatever you want to do just to get the giveaway, not to listen, so that you'll get this kind of. Do you feel that that's happening, or do you just not care about that? I don't think I care anymore whether that's the case.
I don't know if I really care. If I look at my stats, so I get between 100 and 800 entries. Usually it's around 60 to 150 entries for each week contest. And that's not very many, considered people can do it 10 times a day, 10 times each,
Right.
So I don't get tons of contest entry. I think it's a bit of work, and people don't like giving their email.
Right.
But when you compare that to the downloads, I get about 1,000 downloads a week. So I think more people are listening than entering the contest. So they're not just entering the contest without listening, I don't think.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, I think that I don't know. I think that's really interesting. So fascinating. Yeah, so I don't know. So we're starting to look at sort of sponsorship again and sort of the meaning of sponsorship now 4 years later of what it is that we are doing and who we are. Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. And we haven't really done giveaways with our guests because I was such a maniac. We had so many guests, but we're starting to think about what you're doing, which is how do you sort of do all of it? And what does all of it look like? What does it look like for just a friend on the podcast or a Quilting Army member versus somebody with product, and sort of thinking through that. So it's fun.
Well,
I mean,
if I have a guest who has a business, I always ask them for a giveaway. And then I always say to them, it's optional because I do have a sponsor. But if you have a business, I always ask for a giveaway. And if they don't have a business, I don't ask for a giveaway at all.
Yeah.
Like if I have a mom who's made her daughter a coat of many colors because her daughter loves Dolly Parton, I'm not going to ask her for a gift because she doesn't have a business. And she's just, in fact, I want to send her something because I'm appreciative that she's been on the show. So.
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? So you started in 2013, and we'll get to TikTok in just a second, but 2013 is very early for podcasting, and now you're back in, and it's very established. Do you see any differences in terms of podcasting?
Yeah, I see a huge difference. I feel like back then, I had a really loyal audience back then, and I actually had a lot of people connecting with me after saying, "What's going on? Why did you stop?" And I just got really busy at that time, or my career changed, and we were moving, and the whole thing. Like we had moved here already, but I was trying to establish myself in a new part of Canada, and we needed to pay the mortgage. Is basically it. So, but now that I'm back, the big difference is, people treat me like I'm some kind of superstar when it's just me here in my basement studio. And I'll phone people immediately if they order my children's picture book. I always either text them or if I get a hold of them, and I say, "What do you want me to write in the book?" And they just are surprised that I'm contacting them like it's not my people, or I'm like, I don't have any people. Right. It's just me. Yeah. I'm a quilter just like anyone else. And so people treat me a little bit differently this time. It's kind of like, I don't know why, but I'm not famous in any way. So I'm not doing anything differently, but they sort of see you as, I guess, an expert in your industry when you're creating content like that week after week. I'm really just bringing on the stars is what I'm doing, and I'm featuring other people. Yeah. But it's been kind of joyful that people, they really look up to you. So that's been great.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, so it's kind of amazing. And the quilting industry is so kind and very, like they're willing to give back in really interesting ways. Okay. What about TikTok? So I'm obsessed with TikTok right now. I think it's very interesting, and I want to chat with you about it. For those listening who may not know what TikTok is, and I have to say that TikTok is a thing for, my law students were researching TikTok because that's what we're doing for the summer, and one of them said, "Oh, it made me feel so old." They're like 24. I was like, "You're so funny," right? So tell us what TikTok is. Let's start there.
Oh, well, it's kind of like this big success story. It's like this overnight platform that's been crazy, but it's really been around since 2016, but it's only been in North America not too long. And so I love trying new things. I'm on TikTok and Clubhouse and the whole show. I just really love trying new things. So I was kind of lazy and easy on TikTok at first, but recently I've really gotten into it. And so basically what it is it's kind of a short video platform, like a minute or less, and it's a quick fix kind of thing. You really can get addicted to it. I'm sorry if I got you involved in it.
You totally did. It's great really, though, but we're still trying to kind of find our way. But TikTok is, for those listening, is free, so you can just go on. We were just about to talk about this on the Facebook group today, but it's free. So you just go on. I think you could even use your Facebook sign-in to sign into it, and you can look around. So tell us what your TikTok is like, and how has it changed over time? How long have you been on TikTok?
Probably been on it for about 6 or 8 months, but I just did a little bit of stuff fooling around, trying things out at first, because there's so many different things you can do. Right. I think it's kind of a myth that it's just all hacks and videos and dancing that are kind of for youngsters. I think there's a lot of valuable content on it. Like I've learned how to make my breakfast sandwich in a really cool way, so there's
Right.
so many different things. It's not just puppy videos, but those are some of my favorites. So you really kind of curate your list, what you like, you see more of. So that's really cool. And you can get rid of the things you don't like seeing if you don't want to see political stuff. But I've been using it for quilting, and there's so many trends and so many fun little filters you can use on TikTok that you can really make it fun. So as you build your video right in the app, it's so easy to add stickers. And
I love the stickers. The stickers are great.
Fun. Yeah. Like you can add a sticker saying prize or whatever you're talking about.
Right.
And it just really adds a lot of impact. And I've been trying all these little things for quite some time. And then recently I put this video up, and we're going to get into that story, I think, in a minute, of this stitch along I'm about to do. And for the first time, I've got some traction on there. I've never gotten more than a few hundred views, but this time, all of a sudden, boom, it's like, I think it's up to 4,400 views. So that's kind of exciting for one video.
That's very exciting. Very cool.
I've never had that before. So I think it really works when you try to feature something and you continue with that, and people want to see more of that. So they like you and they follow you. Once they like and follow you, then they're more likely to see your information and your videos coming up on their For You page.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of looked into the algorithm a little bit to try to see, well, how do you go viral? How do you,
right.
It's completely different than Instagram. And what I can understand is that TikTok puts your video on random people's For You page, so it's their feed. And if you get like 300 or more people interacting with your video, then they put it out to more For You pages. So it just can grow from there. So someone who's relatively unknown can become viral instantly.
Interesting.
So,
and how do you think, so you've got 697 followers, which is awesome. How do you think, is that just grown organically over time, or did you find certain things worked or didn't work in terms of that?
That has literally happened in the last week.
Oh, because of the one that went viral.
So I've been fooling around with it and really getting no traction for quite some time, trying different video styles and filters. Right. And then when I decided to do this 100-day challenge with So Fine Thread Gloss, it's someone else's challenge I'm doing. But I was trying to figure out what am I going to do for the challenge. And then that's when I found the little book on my shelf, and I realized I've got to do this little challenge with this stitch book. So when I launched that challenge, that's the video that went kind of viral. I think people kind of thought, oh, she's going to do this for 100 days. Oh, I might learn something. Maybe I'll subscribe. So that really worked.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. And tell us a little bit about the 100-day challenge. Where does it come from? And explain what you just said. So you said it was somebody else's challenge. So explain what you're doing and how, because that's very, very, very TikTok-y. So explain what's going on there.
So I'm doing a 100 Days of Summer challenge with So Fine Thread Gloss. It's a Canadian company that has this amazing gloss that you run your thread through to prevent tangles and condition your thread. I just love it. I will not bind a quilt without my So Fine Thread Gloss. I'm addicted to it. She has it in all different scents and everything. So anyway, I love her product. So she launched this 100-day challenge, and the goal was to get people stitching once a day for about 15 minutes, do 100 things, whether it's a block or just something stitched, outside every day of summer. So go out on your deck or something like that. And so I've been doing it for 5 days. It just started June 1st. And I'm making 20 pin cushions over the summer. So I'm doing one pin cushion every 5 days, and I'm stitching every day on this pin cushion and then making it into a pin cushion. So it's really been fun so far. I'm also doing a hexagon project where I'm doing hexagons on a market bag. So I was trying to figure out what could fill up my 15 minutes. Yeah. And by the end of it, I'll have this nice little project. But I found this stitch book on my shelf that I've been using for 15 years. Right. And I decided
we've messaged about this, right?
Yeah, I was chatting with you about the legality of using this book, and I wanted to do a Julie and Julia type challenge. Right. That blog she did. Yeah. And I wanted to stitch every day using stitches from this book. So I reached out to the publisher that ended up not existing, and I tried to find the family, and I discovered that she was born, and it might be possible she's not even alive. And then I looked at her later books, and I did actually find a publisher for one of her latest books, which is still, I think, in the 90s. This was published in the 80s. And that publisher, I kind of gave up because the publisher didn't get back to me for a while. And about 2 weeks later, they emailed me and said, we've got you connected with the family. She'll give you a call. And so I got a phone call from Martha, who is the granddaughter of the author.
Oh, that's really cool.
Jacqueline Enthoven is the author, and her granddaughter Martha phoned me, and they were thrilled, delighted. They had been living with, her parents had been living with Jacqueline just in the last few years. She passed away at 96 years old. And she said, would you be willing to Zoom with my parents? They would love to meet you. So I haven't done that yet. I'm going to Zoom with them in the next week or two, just to meet them. But they're delighted that someone has taken an interest in their mother's books.
So what are you going to try to get it republished, or do a Julia and Julia kind of thing? Or what are you going to do? What's your thought about the next step with this?
Well, I'm actually just using the stitches on TikTok and featuring videos. So I've done the first 5 videos already. So I basically am looking at page 1 and 2. And the first thing I did was, this is a running stitch. Yeah. And here is and then day 2 is a variation on the running stitch, and then another variation. And then day 4 was a running stitch that was whipped or woven. So something's woven through it. And then on day 5, 10, 15, every 5 days, I'm finishing a pincushion. So I'll show you the little one I finished first.
Look at that.
I don't know how easy that is to show you.
I love that.
And then I just do a little modern improv on the back for fun.
Love it.
So every 5 days I'll finish the stitching. And so this really was just the running stitch and some variations. And then next, today I'm starting the next pincushion, I'm doing the darning stitch. And so I'm actually just demonstrating stitches on TikTok. So that's what I got permission from the family for, was to talk about the book, show the book. I'm not showing the stitches or anything in the book. I'm just demonstrating the stitches that I'm learning from the book. And the funny part about it is that they actually have boxes full of these books left, all of her books.
Really?
So she said, I'm sending you all of her books. And I said,
really?
What? So that's exciting.
That's cool.
And the granddaughter, who is in her teens, I think 17, might get connected with me to try to sell some of these books because they're out of print.
Oh,
and they have lots left. So we might end up selling them, and maybe we can raise a little money for her for a charity or something.
I love it.
So
I love it.
I'm looking forward to that.
I will purchase one. I would love to purchase one.
Great.
Yes.
I'll let you know when I have
Definitely.
them. I'm going to put the link in my bio.
Okay, fantastic.
Which is that's another really cool thing about TikTok. Right. So a lot of people they have products or things for sale, right? So they have a business, so for instance, I'm an affiliate for Wonderful Thread. I love Wonderful Thread, and I'm using it in this project. So I'll say in the video, I'm using Northcott fabric and Wonderful Thread, link in the bio. So they can click on my Wonderful link, and then I'm an affiliate. I talk about them, and so I'll get a small, at no extra cost to the customer, I'll get a small little percentage. For Wonderful.
And you're using Linktree as well. So I love Linktree. Let's talk a little bit about what that is and how. And it's also, there's a free version, which is totally, but it's linktr.ee. That's how you get Linktree. But if you just put Linktree in Google, you'll get to Linktree. So what is Linktree?
Yeah, I love Linktree, and I've been using it for a while. I have it on my Instagram bio and my TikTok bio. And basically the first thing I want people to do for anything they see online is I want them to go to my podcast. So the first link is listen to the podcast. The second link is support the podcast. So I have a free podcast that goes out to everyone. Right. Someone wanted to make a $5 donation, like buying me a cup of coffee, they could support the podcast, and that helps me with my business.
And are you doing that through, how are you supporting the podcast? Are you doing that through like a Patreon thing or something else?
Right now, I'm just doing it through Square. So Square can be linked to Linktree, so it can go right through my Square. But I am actually building a Patreon for my podcast because people have been asking for more. So Patreon is really cool as well. It's a way for people to support a creator. And at first I thought, I don't want people to give me money. And then I realized, and I have to really appreciate my value as a creator. And then I'm working really hard on this. And I do want to make a living at this. So, so people can donate outright through Patreon, or they can join at a certain level. So if they join at the $1 level, they'll be part of that Patreon community and they'll see the blog feed. They join at the $5 level, they'll get extra bonus features like bloopers and outtakes and cuts and little challenges. And if they join at the $10 level, they get a full extra podcast a month. which is just me. And then also they can be part of the fiber art challenges that I do, that I'm going to start to do. So I just set that all up and I haven't even launched it yet. I'm ready to pull the trigger. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about it. But it's a commitment, and you really have to, you go to war with yourself about, am I really providing enough value for them to get money? And I'm not sure why we do that as creators, but we really have to reconcile, are we bringing enough value for people to actually, it's up to the consumer to decide, right? If they like it, okay. So
okay, so what I'm finding, and again, I think that I love your stuff, and I love your TikTok, and I'm just really excited about all kinds of things about you. And you're one of the things on TikTok. I go to see what you're doing every day, so I just totally love it. So one of the things I'm wondering about is, especially since you started in 2013, we started in 2017 and launched in, I think we started in 2017. Things have changed in really dramatic, fast ways. And I'm curious about your thoughts about the whole, pulling back in terms of all the things you have to do now. Because I remember when we started our podcast, we had a Facebook page, and then we kind of had an Instagram page, and that was kind of enough. We could get up, we could do stuff, and I don't know. I mean, I'd like to make a list of the things that we have to, what is it like in 2021? And then how do you get it all done? I mean, that's the real, I think it's sometimes easier in some way and harder right now, but I think it's interesting. So tell me what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, it's a challenge for me to balance life with the quilting business. I'm still in the fire world. So over the last year and a half during the pandemic, I've actually been successful in getting my fire business down to 4 hours a day. So I was a full-time, working in the fire industry as a private consultant, teaching people to make their properties safe from wildfire. So my goal is to finish that completely by the end of this year. I'm putting it out there to the universe. I need to finish this job. I don't want to be a firefighter anymore. It's been an incredible journey, but I want to be quilting full time. So balancing that work life, it's been crazy because, it takes me about 8 hours a week to do the podcast, and 4 hours of that alone is editing. And I keep trying to get it under 4 hours.
I know people don't understand. So I would do the interviews, and then I don't get them edited. And then also I really do it's a research podcast, so I really try not to do much editing. And people get really upset, but they don't understand. It takes even if you're doing the minimum of what I do, which is very minimum, it still takes a lot. It's annoying.
And some guests it's so easy to edit, and other guests are ums and ahs and everything. And I don't take out every natural and ah, but if they're stumbling or struggling, I will take that out. I don't want to feature a wonderful guest who volunteered on my show struggling, right? I want them to sound great. So sometimes it will take me hours to edit. But yeah, I mean, back to the work-life struggle, I think there's a balance. I'm trying to find out what could be my checklist. For instance,
what is the checklist?
Podcast,
right? Checklist.
What is the social media checklist?
Right.
So
let's do it.
I've kind of determined that I really want to get my. I have this email, so that's the big thing, the preview, the podcast preview. So that's the email that goes out to thousands of people on my email list. And then from there, I try to do at least 2 social media posts leading up to the podcast. And then I really feature it during the week of the podcast, who it is. If there's a prize, I will talk about that. And then I ask the guest as well to put it out on their social media. So, for instance, if I'm having someone like Karen Brown, who's a famous YouTuber, if she puts it out on social media, that's so helpful because it's promoting that she's an expert in her field and being asked to be on a show. And then I get access to some of her listeners or watchers, I guess, for YouTube. So that's kind of delightful to see things grow a little bit that way. But yeah, I've actually go on Clubhouse. I am in all these rooms where I'm listening to all these experts. So I'm always in the podcast rooms and I'm always in the social media rooms. I went in and got my Instagram audited. I was so petrified to do this because I thought I'm so random. I do tons on Instagram, but I'm random. They came in and instantly, you're random. I was like, they said, you are doing so much great content, Brandy, but you're so random. You need to curate your Instagram in a very fine way. And so what they said was you need to have a reel one day, a photo one day, this, that, one. You need to do something different every time and have a list of how often you're going to do what. and you have to infuse your brand into your Instagram. So I said, what do you mean by infuse your brand? And they said, well, you're the quilter on fire. Your flame is orange, or, pick a color, even if it's a softer orange, if you don't want it so harsh. Your entire feed has to have elements of orange throughout your entire Instagram feed. I was like, oh, okay. So now I'm shopping for clothes and I'm looking for an orange shirt all the time, So I'm really learning. I'm not struggling with it because it's doing okay, but I'm really randomly having a lot of fun right now, which I think is a good way for organic growth. But I really need to tune things up and be more methodical and specific about what I'm doing. So.
And what role does TikTok play in that for you?
TikTok is kind of a fun little side project for me right now because I'm kind of testing it out. And, what I'll do on TikTok for the podcast is I will do reveals. So I'm always getting these wonderful prizes in the mail from the creators I have on my show. And so I've got mail, and then I open and I show everybody what the gift is. So that's been kind of fun.
Yeah.
And the creator actually is really excited to see that video as well, because they're like, oh, someone's featuring my product. And, I actually have people coming to me now saying, I want to send you something. And I'm like, okay, this is happening. Really? So someone will send me wonder clips, or for instance, or something like that, and then I tell them when they're going to send me that, I'm going to do an honest review. If it breaks in my hands, I'm not going to but I've never had anything I don't love. I'm luckily I'm a very positive reviewer of almost everything I get, because it's always a delightful product that solves a problem in my quilting world. So
all right, a couple more questions. So first of all, what is Clubhouse?
Clubhouse is really cool. I think a lot of podcasters got into it at first because there's a huge podcast community there. But Clubhouse is an audio platform where you go in and everyone creates clubs. So I have the Quilter on Fire Club in Clubhouse. And then once you have a club, you can create rooms, and they're like chat rooms. So right now there's not a ton on there about quilting. There's a Monday quilting room. There's a Wednesday one with, I think, Carolina Moore. And then mine is on Friday at 1 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And I'll either have, oh, there's your cat. Hello. So I'll either have a topic or I'll have a guest. So I had Bobby Gentili as a guest, an Instagram expert on Clubhouse, and it's just a room where people come in and chat. So when you enter a room, you're in the audience and you can't speak. And you can raise your hand, come up on stage if you want to ask a question. And I moderate the whole room so I can allow people to come on stage or not. I'm able to mute people, which I would probably never do unless they forgot to mute themselves. But once they're on stage, you sort of let people ask questions in order, or you can just open it up wide and have a conversation.
And is it audio only or video and audio?
Audio only. And so it's really cool because I've been following podcast experts and gurus for a decade almost. And, Cliff Ravenscraft was one of the earliest guys I was following. And then there's Pat Flynn, and all these. And so I was actually following the Entrepreneur on Fire. The Entrepreneurs on Fire is John Lee Dumas. And he is this bajillionaire who works 5 days a month and lives in Costa Rica because of his business. And he's quite young. I think he might even be early 30s. And so you follow him on Clubhouse, and then you get pinged when he's going to be in a room. And so he's this famous guest speaker. He literally shows up as a guest, and that's it. And when you're an influencer on Clubhouse, you can actually make income. People can tip you. So that's kind of an interesting way to make income. But he comes into the room. If you go into that room immediately and put your hand up, you can be one of the first guests on stage, and you can literally speak to him, which would not be an opportunity anywhere else. So I went into that room, and I was like, this is the guy who I made my business name after him. He's Entrepreneurs on Fire. I'm Quilter on Fire. And it fit for me because I'm a firefighter, but I always felt kind of like, do you think he'd care that I'm using that name, right? So I went into that room and I was able to ask him a question. And they said, do you have a question for John Lee Dumas? And I said, I just want to thank him for all of his inspiration for the podcasting. And, obviously you can see my name is created after your name. And I was hesitant about that at first, but then I heard you talking to the accountant, and you encouraged him to be the accountant on Fire. And you said that, like, everyone should do it. There's room for everyone was his kind of take.
Nice.
And he goes, yes, you go. You need to do what you love in the world. I'm so glad you chose that name. And then I was thinking, oh, this is so great. I have this little bit of peace in my mind about that one thing, So it was neat to talk to someone who otherwise it's just not accessible for the average person.
Totally. All right, so this is a lot when I look at like all the things. How much of your time, like, so first of all, I think in some way it's gotten a little bit easier. I know that sounds ridiculous, but because you post something on TikTok, it can automatically go to Facebook. You can go to Instagram. There's all these sort of cross-platform, and you can do later, and you can do there's all these different ways to make doing social media more less struggly, I guess. What are your thoughts about all of that? How do you manage all of this without it taking over your life? Because it does, and most of us are solos doing it, so it isn't like we have a team doing it for us, you know?
Yeah, well, I think if you ask my husband, he would say it is taking over my life. I do the 4 hours a day of firework, and then almost every other waking hour is some kind of something to do with the quilting business. But I'll feature different things on different platforms. So I'll do the everyday challenge on TikTok, and then I'm posting every 10 days because I need to do that for the 100 days is so long. Every 10 days I'll do a feature on Instagram, and everything I post on Instagram goes to Facebook automatically. And I don't even use Twitter anymore, just to be honest. I'm kind of done with Twitter. I'm not sure why. It just doesn't have a huge relevant audience for me. Yeah. My biggest audience actually is on Facebook, because that's kind of my original growth. Yeah. Instagram is second. The podcast, I guess, actually is my biggest following because I get 1,000 a week. But I kind of try to reuse content in a dozen different ways. Yeah. So, with the podcast, I'll post 10 different things about one podcast because I can talk about the guest and the giveaway and the topic and all the different things. Right. And I often try to take the topic and say, this is how it affected me, and I've changed this. And, so I really try to give value on what people can change to make their quilting life better. Yeah. And if I can do tidbits on all platforms, that's what I'll do.
Love it. And let's talk a little bit about intellectual property. So what world is intellectual property? Have you trademarked your name, and did you do it in Canada and the U.S. or just Canada? Sort of what have you done with that, and sort of what other intellectual property issues arise in your life?
Yeah, well, I actually trademarked my name, and I got the business name and the URL and the whole show right from the beginning. When I transferred, I used to be called Brandy Lynn Designs and had the Canadian Quilt Talk podcast and the Explore Fiber. I had so many different things going on that I was confusing my audience. So between 2013 and 2015, I made this migration to a new name. Yeah. And now that I have one name for everything, and it's copywritten, it's trademarked, it's the whole show in Canada. In Canada. It's so much easier. Yeah, I just have it in Canada.
Do you think you'll expand to the U.S.? Because once you have, can I tell you a little bit? So once since you have priority here in the U.S., and then you can either do it directly or through a Madrid protocol thing. And it's not terribly hard. So particularly it's a foreign trademark, but if you ever get into it, we can't act as your attorney, but we totally can help you, and we can use you as an example. So if you're interested in that, we're expanding our Just Wanna Trademark book this summer. We're doing 2.0. But it would be really fun to take your work and sort of explain how you get to the next step. How do you take a Canadian trademark and register it here? Because it's a little bit different than just a domestic one. So it would be really fun.
I'd be all over that. That would be fantastic.
Well, in that email that you're sending me, send that as well, because we'll follow up. But yeah, for those listening that are outside of the U.S., you can have a trademark you can have a trademark in your home country. Awesome. You also can have a trademark here in the U.S. with the same trademark. And it just depends on sort of there's a number of ways to do that. And so it's a little bit different, and there's just a little bit different. It's a different number, it's a little bit different number, all those sorts of things. So, but yeah, it'd be really fun. I would love to do that because we need a example for the book. And so you would be a great example of sort of how to
it's really important for me specifically now in this last year and a half, because I had never taught in the U.S. before. As a Canadian, I'm not allowed to come down and work in the U.S. So I've never actually taught in the US before. But throughout the pandemic, I've been able to do it on Zoom. And so it's kind of exploded for me in that way. And I've been able to figure out the whole tax situation and what to charge and all that with my bookkeeper and my accountant. But yeah, when it comes to trademark, you want to make sure that you're safe and you're doing things properly. So it'll be great to learn that.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, as I said, we're doing TikTok. I'm kind of amazed at, well, a couple of things with TikTok that amazes me. One is that there's no verification. So I put in JustWannaQuilt, but because I'm a business, like I could have put in any name of any business and you could just get that handle, which is, I think, really strange. The second is the difference between like a source identifier and a business name. I mean, source identifier and just general. So they have one of the hashtags on there is quilting is my therapy, but people are using it as like quilting is my therapy, like but also there's the company and there's Angela Walter's thing of quilting is my therapy. So that's a really interesting kind of, and when I first saw it on there, I thought, well, I can't use that one because that's not my company, but that's not how people are using it. They're using it. And in some way, like because it's a very generic thing to say, quilting is my therapy. So that's problematic really on her. I mean, she's made it into a thing, but you can kind of see kind of why that's a problem. So
yeah, I don't think I would have been able to, like if I had done quilting is my therapy trying to get the business name in Canada. No. They don't allow, like even Quilter, on the fact that there was an in there I'm a being, I'm a human, like it's a thing rather than just common names. So I was able to get Quilter on fire, but they don't generally allow anything that's common words because people need to use that.
Yeah, right. And we had to disclaim quilt. So we're Just Wanna Quilt, but we disclaimed quilt, meaning that we're not trying to lock up the word quilt. And so you could do that as part of your, we also have, there's a group that's trying, that I think it was an accident that the trademark office gave one particular group social, SEW, social, and I think that's wrong. I think they didn't understand that that's just such a common term. So we're trying to sort of figure out how do we express that to the trademark office. I mean, so but then they started sending terrible letters to people telling them they couldn't use it, and that's not really. They can, right? It's either descriptive fair use or it's generic and they shouldn't have had it trademarked. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So from my perspective, we're really watching that and following that because I think there's often spinning. Is it spinning? Spinning is trademarked, but now it's such a common term that there's other companies trying to get it genericized. The other one is what are the circles? The 2.5-inch circles called? Anyway, so there's a bunch of them that are people have trademarked early, and then everybody gets to know them, and then they become generic. Anyway. The other thing that I think is really interesting, and I'm curious what your thoughts are about this. So TikTok, a lot of what TikTok does is it uses music, like people like the song, and so they see. But if you're a business, you can't, if you are a commercial business, you can't use much of that music. That if you identify yourself as a business, then that precludes you from using that music that is the one that's sort of driving people to your and so I'm curious what you identified yourself as. Did you a personal, business, or creator? Because there's 3 categories.
Now I'm a creator, so I'm not using the music as much anymore. So at the beginning, I started using the music, and I started to realize, it's not allowing me to post to Instagram or Facebook. What's going on? And I realized, it doesn't allow you to post to another platform with the TikTok music. So that was one thing. And then I started to realize, why am I even allowed to use any of this music? I should just be using my own music or my own talk or whatever. And so what I've found now is that also there's a trademark stamp if you make the video right in TikTok.
Right.
So that also, when you share it to Instagram, you see the TikTok watermark.
That's
so
right.
Now I create all my videos on my phone, and then I upload videos into TikTok, which doesn't have the watermark because you didn't create it in TikTok. Then you can use that raw video footage on any platform, any way you want. But, the editor in TikTok makes it much easier. But I am a creator right now. So I'm just being careful not to use, if I do use music within the platform and it allows me to use it, then I just keep it there. I don't share it. And if I'm going to
Well,
share
I
something,
think that what's interesting about it, because we've been sharing stuff, because again, I'm interested in intellectual property, it is sending a link to those platforms, and so links are fine, and so they've cleared the music for the TikTok platform, but because they're directing you back to TikTok, there isn't a problem with it. So I think that's super interesting. But yeah, the commercial makes it really different. So we've played a bunch. So we were personal, then we went to commercial. I think we tried creative, we went back to personal, then we went. I think we've settled on commercial because we're not relying on the music part. But it is very fascinating to
I'm
watch.
trying to remember if I've gone over to business create. I'll have to go check in my thing, because I think when I was setting up my link tree, I think I may have changed to business actually, because I think I was
because that's the only. I think that allows you to put that link tree in there and and that's what sort of. That's what we decided, is that even though you can put a link in your bio, it's not a live link in the same way. So, right? Yeah. So, yeah, it's been really fascinating and interesting. Well, I can't wait to sort of talk more about the journey. Thank you so much for coming on. And would you come back and just keep us posted on how things are going? There aren't a lot of quilters on TikTok yet, so it'll be interesting to see how that grows. I mean, there are, but it's surprising sort of. It's like the new frontier. And so it's fun to sort of be playing there.
Yeah, it's really fun. And let me just tell everybody that if you want to find me, it's Quilter on Fire. But I also want to leave you with one of my favorite creators on TikTok, because I love to share what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys, I like following you, and I'm having fun with you guys. But there's one on there called Mr. Bones, and she's adorable. She has a little skeleton that she uses in her quilting. So if you're going to go check it out, go find her. And I really like
Mr. Domestic. He is like a thing on TikTok. He's made it. He's like figured it out, right? He's got 150 or 175,000 followers, and he's got his whole thing going. So I think, and it's interesting because you look at his Facebook, and he's got about 50 on Facebook. But the fact that he's got triple that on TikTok is remarkable to me. Like, he's really figured out the form.
Bold statement type of content, and it's just really fun. He's like colorful, fun, really. He's not afraid to say it like it is. Right. He's really fun.
So funny. And you know what's doing well on our TikTok? First of all, I've just given up caring. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's random and weird and like whatever weirdness. It makes me want to quilt every day or sew every day, because it gives you something, content to put up. But and I don't know how to do this. Maybe you can help me. I think we need. I want to do one of those. Tell them the difference between a duet and a stitch, because I think I have a good idea for one of those.
Yeah, so a duet is really fun. So a lot of people do this with music. First of all, they sing a song and they say duet me. So you can click on duet, and then it comes up with the side-by-side video, and you can record yourself with them. So that's a duet where you're side by side. So I can oogle over fabric or something.
Right. I think you did one with us, didn't you? Do a duet?
I did a duet of yours.
Yeah. I gotta send you the fabric. Yeah, it was fun. It was really great.
Yeah, it was so fun, and I got a lot of views on that. People were excited about that. They thought it was really fun. And then to stitch something though, instead of being side by side, people will do a prompt like, tell me that your dog loves you without telling me your dog loves you, and then you stitch it. So you cut their video off at that point, and then it becomes your video, and then you see your dog just hugging you randomly. So it's quite fun. And some of those really have gone viral. People will they'll say, tell me this without telling me this, and then they'll do their own.
Got it.
But people cut that part off and stitch their own video.
We have to get a little bigger. And my latest thing, which makes me laugh, Remy loves he only hangs out when there's Zoom. But one of the things I really love is I'm taking all of the projects I haven't finished at UFOs and just putting them on TikTok. Like, here are things I'm never ever going to finish, right? And so I think I want to do a stitch of that, of like, show me project you'll never finish. And so I want to get just a little bit bigger and then sort of do that and see, because I think that's fun. And I've got so many of them. But we're seeing the UFO thing. Like, so maybe we'll try it even as a baby group like this. That we only have 50 followers, but we're growing. We've only been on a couple weeks, so we're getting there. But yeah, I mean, the UFO ones which makes me laugh, because it's like, these are projects I've abandoned, but now on TikTok there's something. I also have been washing fabric. So that's the latest thing, is like watching me throw it into the wash or bring it out of the dryer. Just dumb stuff. Like, TikTok is very silly like that, but it makes you I'm going to wash all my fabric,
one of the most famous TikTokers she's a lesbian and she does laundry and she is awesome. Like, so she started off by folding, I think, a shirt or something. And then now, like, she is, I don't know, she has a bajillion followers and it's,
I'll have to look at it.
There's lesbian TikTok, there's quilt talk, there's, there's everything. There's so many, it's amazing what's
It really
out there.
is. And one of the advices that we had gotten, some advice that we had gotten was crossovers. So, we do a lot of cat and quilting videos. So cat people would be interested. And, we do a lot of LGBT flags. It's one of the things that I do and donate to an arts collective. So, like, not just being, because quilters isn't a huge group on there. So thinking about how to make it bigger, like what you're doing with the sewing, right? Like the stitching, it pushes it out a little bit. So, yeah.
It inspired me. Now I have to try to figure out what can I do to get people to stitch one of my videos. I'm going to try that as well. We'll see what happens in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Well, I totally adore you. Thank you so much for being part of this. Are you cool with us posting without reviewing, or do you need to review it?
Oh, no, you can post without review.
Awesome. And that's all we got. So hold on for just a second, and thank you again. This has been so much fun. And do come back. Just sign up when you're ready to talk more, because I'd love to see your progress and what you're doing. I feel like we're like in this together. We're like both podcast TikTokers on quilting, so we're like sisters. So we have to sort of figure out how that. Okay, cool. So hold on just a second. So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt. I'm Elizabeth. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School, and we are just excited to be back and to be talking about quilting. Come join us on our Facebook group, on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Come play with us on TikTok. And I don't know, just enjoy the moment, at least a little bit. We're quilting just a little bit more right now. That's it. I hope you get a chance to quilt today, and thank you so much for listening.